right, welcome everyone to Dave Cooper Live as we feature the people, the products, and the processes helping us to build it better. As the building industry moves towards a more productized and design standard driven approach across many sectors from healthcare, data centers, housing, retail, and more, architects and designers lack the tools to support these workflows and design delivery methods. Kit Connect is a design management solution to create, curate, distribute, and iterate prefab, modular, or standardized design collections directly in the native BIM environment. Ready to go beyond prefab and modular construction, Kit Connect offers a design management system bringing assembly logic to BIM so that building owners, designers, and product creators can accurately and efficiently share product to project design data. Kit Connect was born out of innovation from Project Frog, an industrialized construction pioneer with nearly 2 decades of institutional knowledge in designing, developing, and managing prefab kit of parts. So please welcome Chief Product Officer Mike Eggers to Dave Cooper Live. Mike leads Project Frog's Kit Connect software division, a software solution putting data at the center for building product creators and building designers to drive scalability, efficient product to project workflows. As part of Frog's senior leadership, Mike drives product strategy and vision for the organization while working closely with Frog's software development and business development team. But before we hop into any and all of this, we got to thank our sponsors. So here's a quick shout out to both of our sponsors. Forward Solutions Group is successfully driving companies to succeed where others have failed. Are you looking to start a factory, optimize your existing factory, streamline your production, or take your team to the next level? Whatever your needs are, Forward has a solution for you. Reach out to Ben at forwardsolutionsgroup.com. Halleck Ltd. has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and producing innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the United States and the world. Check out their machine buyer's guide for off-site modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, halleckltd.com. All right. Thank you again to Forward Solutions Group and Halleck Ltd. We cannot bring all these informative conversations to you each and every week without them. So again, one last time, thank you. And if you don't know who they are, please go and follow, like them, and ask them questions. All right. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's bring Mike Eggers into the show. Mike, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you, Dave?
Man, I'm having a great day. It's Wednesday. It's hump day, right? We still got 2 or 3 days left to actually build it better. So I'm excited.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
So, Mike, we ask everybody before we get into this show that we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will have a family member on, and that could get quite embarrassment. But you only have 2 minutes to do it, and then we're going to hop into what Kit Connect is all about. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Dave. So I'm the Chief Product Officer for Kit Connect. My background, I'm an architect, but I would best describe myself as an architectural technologist these days. So did about a decade in traditional architectural practice, brief stint in the world of reality capture and GIS mapping while I was at a company called Earthmine and then Here Maps. And then I joined Project Frog back in 2015 to take over the product team and really focus us on technology solutions. I have a big interest in scalability of design and how to scale solutions. We have a big need in this world for building better and building more, particularly with housing crisis and other things going on and kind of the built environment. So that's me in a nutshell, is architectural technologist trying to improve the world and better ways of building.
Well, and you guys are surely doing that, and I'm super excited to get into this. No one on this show has ever said BIM is falling short. right? BIM's the latest and greatest in the manufacturing environment for housing and single family development, where all of a sudden people are really interested in using it and creating that digital twin. So that's a pretty broad statement that I look forward to jumping into with you. So I look forward to it. Mike, before we get into all this, I mean, what problem is Kit Connect trying to solve?
Maybe we could pull up a slide and I'll kind of
Sure.
summarize it. Let's go to the second slide. So I would say, we got a little bit of mangled text here, but we'll get the idea across. We look at the world kind of in two camps, right? The world of building product creation and building design. And if you're working in a productized environment, and we would qualify productized. A lot of people on this show might be watching the show might say, we don't do product. We're not doing prefab. We're not doing modular. And we would challenge that. We would say, think if you're doing healthcare, if you're doing multifamily housing, if you're an owner operator building data centers or fast food joints, these are all productized, highly standardized ways of working. And if you're working in this world of kit of parts, or getting into prefab and modular parts and assemblies and modules, there's a huge data divide between these two camps of how to develop a product and how to execute on a project. And it's no surprise that we're here. BIM is, as we all know, a 20-plus-year-old technology, and it's gotten really good, right? But it was always set out to do the thing on the right, is to develop construction documents, right? And it's really, really good. So I would say in terms of CDs, it doesn't fall short. It's a fantastic tool. But when I'm trying to work in the world of assembly logic and really marry that to the world of project execution, it massively falls short. We have a lot of loss in translation, a lot of remodeling and rework. So I start out with highly structured information, highly standardized information. I hand it over to a group of designers to work with my kit of parts or my components or my standards, and a lot of entropy sets in, and that data exchange back and forth becomes very, very difficult. Very, very difficult to glean information back from that project execution, derive a bill of materials, just derive improvements, product improvements. So this is, where BIM really, really falls short in this world, and just introduces a lot of risk. It's harder and harder to reap the benefits of that way of working in a productized fashion. So we're trying to solve for that.
So, what qualifies as a productized building and productized design? Is this limited to prefab and modular construction only?
No, definitely not. Right. I mean, think of a data center or a hospital, right? Or I think I mentioned a fast food building earlier, right? These are buildings as products. Whether or not I'm executing them in prefab or modular, this is in some ways the IP of the company. Data centers are very much IP. And these are developed in productized ways. So that way of working of how do I maintain standards? How do I understand as I the product life cycle of these components of the entire buildings, right? As they evolve over time, as you evolve your IP over time, you should be capturing that information, managing it on in a scalable approach, having a ledger of change over time. So a lot of these ways of working that we're used to, maybe in the kind of mechanical CAD world, are becoming more and more present in the world of AEC.
Got it. And you just let me know when you want that slide deck up there as we go through some of these questions and conversations. So, BIM falling short, right? How are design tools and BIM falling short for productized, modular, or design standards driven projects in general? So, I mean, I'm still not wrapping my head around how it's falling short, because I've been thinking it's the greatest thing since sliced bread.
I would say, because BIM never set out to understand, think of tools like SolidWorks or Inventor,
Okay.
that were built from the ground up to manage assembly logic. This is really the crux that we see of where BIM falls short. It's really built on a project is a singular snowflake that you execute on, and then I go do another project and we hit the reset button and we start over. And this is really the paradigm that BIM has been built on. No surprise, right? Because again, it's 20-plus-years old. It was really trying to improve CAD, right? Make your journey to construction documents faster and more efficient, but it never considered the idea of assemblies and subassemblies. So this is really, kind of the main piece that we're trying to solve for, is introducing assembly logic into the BIM environment, and making BIM understand that, right? Which is no easy task, but we think we've solved for that pretty well with Kit Connect.
Sure. And talk to me a little bit. How does this information get into BIM? How do you productize, a building or a system?
So I think the first, maybe we can go to a slide here again. Let me pick one that kind of illustrates this.
Yeah.
So
Or hey,
this is
walk us through your presentation. Maybe that's
yeah,
the best way. Go for it.
yeah, we could do that. We could do that. Let me back up a couple then. So for starters, Kit Connect, we call ourselves a design management solution, and this is very different than a content management solution. There's a lot of content management solutions out in the world, but really, we're trying to manage design, and I would say that the key differentiating point there is we want to look at things like design relationships and design processes. So content management, you're really concerned with just the raw content. Content is generic information or files. So you have your, in the context of BIM or Revit, you've got things like RFAs and RVTs to manage, and then of course information along with that. But it doesn't really tell me how the parts relate to the whole. And this is really the core IP. If I'm developing a data center or a hospital or a modular solution, how the parts relate to the whole is the core IP of my kit of parts, of my components. So we capture that in what we call a relational component database, and we're allowing the users to interact with that, kind of build assemblies and sub-assemblies in the environment and apply that into a BIM context. And then on top of that, we also capture design processes, which is thinking about lifecycle management. How do you manage things like revision states and things like this? And I've used an analogy before of if you think of content management systems, I kind of say they're sort of like a dictionary. It's like, here's the words and here's what they mean, right? And I can look them up and find them efficiently, but it doesn't tell me how those words get composed into sentences and paragraphs and chapters and stories, right? And that's really design relationships, and that core IP is like we capture how all those parts relate to the whole. We manage that in a database that allows you to find that information, edit it, update it, and then manage it in an efficient way.
Excellent.
And this is what we feel creates this kind of product to project workflow. So the goal with Kit Connect is to create highly structured products that then become highly structured buildings. And really importantly, as those teams or sometimes different organizations sharing this information work together, we maintain that data fidelity from structured products to structured buildings, and that's going to set you up for better structured data insights. Think of, if I'm a prefab company, I have my kit of parts. I want to share that with a third party to develop a building. I want to be able to take that building back or buildings back from multiple third parties, derive a bill of materials. I want to be able to look at what was site adapted and evolve my kit of parts. Maybe there was discoveries on site of a defect or some improvement we could make. How do I capture that and manage it back into the life cycle of the product? So those data insights, having apples to apples comparison and data fidelity as I share this information is really important. If that breaks down, which is really typical in I would say, an unconstrained BIM environment, it's very hard to maintain that level of control. And once I throw that data over the wall, it's very, very difficult to retrieve it and kind of derive a BOM, make sense of it, right? So we're really trying to control for those factors and not lose all of that important work and information you put in your kit of parts up front, so that you can distribute it and share it efficiently with designers.
So the kit of parts continually learning based on what's happening in real time.
Exactly, and being able to, if something changes, we're able to communicate that in real time. If I have a module as an example, and using Kit Connect, if that module is being used on 50 different projects with 50 different organizations, if I introduce a new revision of that because maybe we found a design improvement or a defect that we want to eliminate, we can signal that to everybody on that project immediately in real time, and push that update, right? And everybody can get that signal and then grab that and update it in their model. So that kind of life cycle management is a really important piece of the puzzle in a productized environment, right? And these are things that, again, BIM just never set out to solve for, and we really, it's a huge need in the world of productization.
I mean, I think it's absolutely amazing that it can do that in real time and update all the other stakeholders that are possibly using that module at that very moment in time, or even after they've gotten started on a project.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a really critical piece of the puzzle, like I
Yeah,
said, right? Particularly if you're talking about something like, maybe we found a defect in the factory and we need to push that change immediately out across all our projects. So very, very important way of working, and very difficult to manage with just out of the box BIM.
sure.
Where'd you like to go next? Should I just keep moving
Yeah,
through
let's
the
just.
through the
I think let's go
presentation?
through the
Sure.
deck and then we'll hop into some of these questions as we go.
Okay, great. Yeah. So kind of, getting a little more specific into this product to project workflow, and how we sort of look at this life cycle, right? If we put the world of, on the product side, we have a few different camps of users we think about, certainly, what we call industrialized construction pioneers, those prefab companies. But then we look at some other users too, right? Owner operators, certainly, maybe, again, if I'm building data centers, if I'm building healthcare, and then what we call repeatable designers. These are, architects and engineers that are designing highly standardized buildings. They often work with the owner operators, right? They're often executing on owner operator buildings, or sometimes working with prefab companies. So there's a need to develop and manage their kit parts in a scalable way, and then be able to distribute, and really importantly, not just distribute, but control how that information is used in the context of building design. Um, this is again something lacking in kind of native BIM, and also I would say lacking in content management systems. Being able to say, you don't have edit rights over this component, or you can only access certain layers in the stack of an assembly. We're able to control for that in the context of project execution. So then, architects and designers are kind of in a ideally in a product consumption mode when putting a building together using Kit Connect. They're able to access that information efficiently, know they're working with the right curated set of data,
Mhm.
using our paradigm of kits and projects, which I'll talk about in a bit. And then as they execute on that building design, be able to share that back with the product company, and be able to, so they can pull better data insights. So this is kind of that, again, that life cycle loop that we're trying to promote using
Right.
Kit Connect. And we achieve this really through, again, what I call that relational component database. This is heavily modeled after PDM and PLM solutions. If those that aren't familiar with those acronyms, these are coming out of more of the mechanical CAD manufacturing space. So product design management and product lifecycle management. These are really common tools in the MCAD world and in the industrial design world. These are things that Project Frog historically tried to use, and maybe some folks on this watching this today are struggling with and trying to force fit it into their AEC workflow. And we there's a lot of great paradigms there, but they really fall short in the context of AEC, particularly when you try to use them in the BIM context. But so the kind of general hierarchy of Kit Connect is we have components at the base layer. Components are sort of our you can think of it as the sort of the heart and soul of Kit Connect. This is the assemblies and sub-assemblies that you create. So we can nest these infinitely throughout. I can nest these as deeply as I want. I can reuse the same component in the context of other components. So this is again a paradigm very much coming out of tools like SolidWorks and Inventor in the MCAD
Mhm.
world. Components then get organized and shared into what we call kits. You can think of these as libraries, so we call them kits. And a single component can live in multiple kits. So everything we set up, you'll see, is on this kind of many to many relationship. So a single component can live in multiple other components. A single component can be shared into multiple kits. And then once I curate those components in the context of a kit, I can share that into a Kit Connect project. And a single project can contain multiple kits again. So I can
So,
I can again like share these in many to many relationships across the board.
let's just understand components, kits, and projects, right? So I'm going to assume components are the assembly pieces, the trusses, the wall trusses, the modules, the individual pieces. Would that be accurate?
At its most finite part, I would say yes, but then
Okay.
I might take a truss and I might organize it with the rest of set of structural components to make a subset of a module, right? And then I could create a parent component that's made up of multiple children. So I can again, we can nest these in infinite hierarchies. So you may start with something very finite, very small. It could be something as small as a sink, right? But
Right.
then that sink might be part of a whole vanity assembly that then becomes part of a bathroom module, and these are all components going up, up the stack as we start to organize that information, which allows you to also share, distribute sort of the design load across multiple teams with different expertise. So that's kind of how components work. Very much assembly, subassembly logic.
Got it. Got it. So can these literally be turned into a bomb as well? Kind of a bill of materials for the components?
That's the ultimate goal, right? Is to be able to derive a bomb once I instantiate these. So I have, I have these living in the context of a project, right? So I take these components that have been shared with me via kits in my projects, and I'm able to assemble a whole building because Kit Connect maintains all of that hierarchy and information, um, all the way down to its most finite element. Then you're set up to be able to derive a bomb because you haven't destroyed that information. So we persist that assembly logic all the way in the context of a building.
Got it. And can somebody, let's just jump the projects. Can somebody say, well, that exact project will fit on my lot. I want it as is, and they can download the whole project?
We're not quite to that point yet.
Mhm.
But I think that's when we get into, playing well with other tools. Like we integrate really well with, other workflows like BIM 360
Yep.
and ACC. So those are all, we don't disrupt any of those workflows. If you want to grab that information and reuse it in another project context, that's, something that we can start to work with other workflows. And it's hard to capture
Right.
all, the IC is a very big world, so hard to capture all those workflows under one tool.
For sure. All right. Sorry to sidetrack you there.
No, no
Keep going.
worries. No worries. Um, Maybe what I'll do is, we could also jump into a demo if that's helpful.
Yeah.
So let me first, before we get into the demo, I'll kind of tee up. There's two core components to Kit Connect. There's a Revit plugin and a web application. The demo will show both of these kind of moving back and forth between each other.
Okay.
And then the sort of flow that I'm going to demonstrate here, we'll show the idea of a product to project workflow, and we'll kind of move back and forth between these two. So on the product side, what we'll do is we'll focus on, first we'll just publish a component. So let's say you're a product designer, you're working in Revit. We'll make a component that we're going to call a subunit in this context, and that subunit will eventually be shared into a larger assembly, right? So we'll ultimately make a module, a full apartment module out of this thing, made up of multiple child components. So we'll publish this subunit. Then we're going to move into our web application, and show just some lifecycle management. So we'll do some revision state lifecycle management. From there, we'll go and start to assemble a parent component, and then move over to project execution. And then this is kind of the simplest piece, just putting together components in the context of a building. And then the last piece we'll show is doing some revision state management, how we are able to manage the lifecycle state of a component as the design evolves over time. Any kind of questions before I kind of dive into the video demo here?
No, you know what? I think that once we do the demo, it'll probably drive a lot of questions. So why don't we hop into
Sure.
it?
Okay. Sounds great. So hopefully, I don't know, maybe my video didn't upload. I might need to switch over to just sharing my screen.
You should be able to share a
Let's,
video as well. If you just hit that button, should give you the option to pick that separately. So, all right,
okay,
while you're doing
great.
that,
Give me a
everybody,
second.
we are
Yeah,
live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Twitter. So if you are not following us, please do. If you're not tweeting us, you need to tweet us now. And if you're not following Kit Connect, Project Frog, and Mike Eggers on LinkedIn and elsewhere, you're wrong. You need to follow them. I see some people in the audience out there. Hey, Joel Hutchins, what's going on? He says, good afternoon, Dave Cooper and Mike Eggers. He's joining a little late. Better late than never, Joel. I hope all is well. And I hope you're somewhere warm, unlike us, or unlike me, I should say. How you making out? You ready?
almost. Give me 1 second. I'm just digging in to get to that video. And all right, I have got it. It is locked and loaded, I
All
think.
right, let's put it up.
Let's see. All right.
You can control it
So
from your screen.
Okay, perfect. So we're starting out here in Revit. We've got our Kit Connect plugin installed. The first thing I need to do is associate my Revit file to a Kit Connect project. So we're going to pin this. We're going to pin this file to a Kit Connect project, and you'll see that it's going to bring up a list of available projects that I, as an individual user, have been invited onto. We have lots of levels of user permission here in the Kit Connect system. From there, I'm going to open up what we call the kit browser. The kit browser lets you browse through kits. So you can see here in our web app, we've got several kits associated to this project. So I have some balcony kits, our subunits kit, and units kit. So we're going to browse through those. That the kit browser shows you the various components that have been curated and made available in the context of that kit. So I'm doing like product design in this example. So I have
Right.
access to my subunits and my units, the entire hierarchy. And we're going to just focus on publishing one of these subunits as a component into my subunits kit. So I'm going to select that information. We fill out some information here. You'll see we have things like revision state, right? So that we're able to signal what status is this in? Is this in progress? Is this released to use? Is it retired? And we'll do some lifecycle state management in the next step in our web application. We specify what kit we want that to go into, and then an insertion point to tell it, when I insert it in our model, where does it go? So once we filled out sort of all of that information, that's going to go up to the cloud, be made available in the context of that specific kit. And any project using that kit, it's going to immediately be made available to. All that information on its life cycle state, so on and so forth. The user can go grab any notes that I added to that information. So now that
let me ask you a quick question on the kits.
Yeah.
I'm designing something. Can I search for certain parameters, like certain sizes, certain designs within the cloud, so it's easy for me to find these things?
Those are features that are, I would say, on this year's roadmap. We're looking
Yeah.
to extend a lot more ability to search metadata on top of that. That's a big piece of the puzzle. So we have, stay tuned on that subject. Right
Awesome.
now, it's mainly, we do have tagging. We do have, of course, you can use naming conventions and
Yeah.
tagging. So there's some amount of parameters that we can add there.
Great.
Great. So now we're in our web application. I'm looking at one of our kits of parts. I'm specifically looking at that subunits kit. You can see I have a number of components already published here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to filter this list down, and I want to look at things that just show me things that are in a review state. So I can use that revision state. A revision gets various states from in progress, review, released, and retired. So I'm looking at things that are just in review, and I want to release 3 of these. So maybe I'm a design manager. I want to signal to my designers, hey, these are good to go. Go make other things with them. Go make some apartment units out of it. So I'm going to flip 3 of these over from a review state to a release state that apply to this 3-bedroom apartment unit that I'm going to make.
Mhm.
So now that I've released 3 of those, I could filter that down. I can look at, okay, there's my 3 that I've put in a release state. So the next thing we're going to do is hop over to Revit, and you'll see that release state immediately becomes available. So the color coding here is indicating, the green indicates released. So now as a designer, I don't have to go ask anybody and hunt around, hey, is this okay to use? I can just see it in my kit browser in Kit Connect. I can do the same thing. I can filter that down and say, okay, just show me things that are in a release state. And from there, I can start building up my module. So, I'm saving time. I don't have to go, like I said, running around asking somebody. I have confidence what I'm working with is deemed allowable. So I can move quicker. I don't have to worry about introducing errors into this model. I can sort of focus on my task at hand, which is creating this higher level unit. So we're going to build up a whole apartment unit using 3 of those subunits. And then from there, we'll publish that out as a unit. And this will create that kind of parent-child relationship I was
Right.
talking about in that relational component database. So we'll now have a parent made up of 3 children, all with revision state management down the chain. So same exact process, fill out the information, give it a release state, specify what kit it's going to get published to. This time we'll publish it to our units kit.
Mhm.
So really, really, doesn't matter if you're creating hierarchies or nesting things. We kept the UI really consistent and really simple and easy to use, easy to understand. Anything before we jump into kind of the building side of
Yeah, I mean, there's a question I want to get to from Henry Mickelberg that came through. Let's put it up here on the
sure.
screen and see what Henry. Oh boy, he wrote a book. Two of them for starters. He says questions. So you are providing fully coordinated, fully performance specified BIM objects to Revit, allowing scheme architects to use them in concept design is the first question. And I'll leave this up so you don't have to remember this. All of your time, cost, quality, percent improvements are based upon what normal IC versus Frog IC or Frog IC versus traditional construction methods. If so, got to see the methodology working out.
Yeah. So on number one, we're giving tools to provide the fully coordinated performance specified BIM objects, right? So this is the tool lacking is if I'm an IC company, I'm a prefab company. How do I organize that information? How do I make sure I can curate it, distribute it, right? How do I get it into the hands of architects and designers? So you can see us as a kind of we're a platform to manage and organize that information. And this gets, sometimes it's we're not a marketplace, right? So I think that's something to be clear with everybody. We're really just providing those tools so anybody can do this, even if you're not a prefab company and you're trying to get into the world of prefab or industrialized tools to work in a better managed environment, a more scalable environment. What was the second question? And if you could bring that one back up. So all the time cost calibrated based upon what normal IC versus. So I would say the normal IC, and this isn't really Frog IC, right? The concepts of revision state management, lifecycle management, right? These are paradigms coming straight out of the tried and true world of product design, and these aren't common paradigms in the world of AEC. So the time savings is really just look at decades of work that has gone on in automotive and in any kind of consumer electronics, any product design that's typically done with mechanical CAD, right? They use tools like PDM and PLM. They use lifecycle state management, revision state management, assembly logic. This is all ways of working that we have decades of, literally decades of kind of evidence around. And that's really what we're basing Kit Connect on. So, it's not particularly Frog. We found our way into those ways of working because we were trying to adopt a lot of those tools. And of course, we're using a kit of parts. But that's really what we're trying to bring into the context of the BIM environment is be able to efficiently manage your data and kind of wrangle it so that you make it available and understandable.
So with this, Mike, and making it available, making it understandable, basically you're simplifying the whole offsite industrialized construction methodology for those that really don't understand it yet, and they can come in and start plugging and playing with your system to design and build.
Absolutely. And that's a big part of it is this is a new world for architects and engineers. And if you try to go and take on, and we've seen it, we've tried it ourselves at Frog, like we'll just model the whole building in SolidWorks, like massively problematic. How do you share the data with people using CAD and BIM? So how do you make a permit set? Right? All of these kind of like things that just start to break down immediately.
Right.
So, let's use PDM, let's use PLM that aren't really built to ride on top of BIM. Very problematic again. So we're trying to like take the best of that world and bring it into the context of something easy to use and really, really importantly, something that does not disrupt your standard construction document workflows. We're not telling you rethink how to use Revit. That's a big focus of ours is like, we want to sort of get out of your way and fall to the background as much as possible when you're working in Revit, right? So ease of use, simplifying all of those paradigms and really making it purpose built for AEC. So that's a big focus of Kit Connect. Very sensitive environment touching construction documents, right? Very live ammo workflow there. That we don't
well, it is. It becomes personal, right? There's a lot of energy and time that somebody
Yeah.
puts into their mind and all the education. So Joe Hutchins has a question too. How are you not attempting to be a marketplace? I am confused. The way I see it, that is your core value. Joe doesn't get confused very often. So congratulations on that.
So yeah, and we're not saying we wouldn't be at any point, but as it stands today, we launched this next gen of our product fall of last year. So we've kind of focused on the core value. So right now, I would say we are maybe an individualized marketplace, but we look at other tools. There's marketplaces out in the world, that and they're great. I'm not trying to say any of these solutions are not viable or working. Obviously, they have a lot of market share, but we really focused on sort of those mechanisms of persisting the data, maintaining data fidelity. So we're trying to solve for that really, really tightly, and give manufacturers and modular companies good tools to just start to organize their information. We
Yeah.
are a cloud-based solution, and we'll see where we take that in the future, I would say.
Joel, good to see you, my friend. Thank you for asking a question. We got another question here. We'll get back to what you were showing us in just a moment, but they start coming in. All right. So Logan Potts, lead a green associate. Will there be a future integration for translating the schematic to direct product ordering, or at least estimating pre-input pricing to actually build the design similar to the takeoff and estimating features of is it Modubate?
Okay. Yeah. So, I think as far as integrations go, our starting point, I think we'll have some partnerships that we're going to announce this year around some workflow integrations, and how to do some of the things that are being talked about here, right? Particularly, when you get into the world of handling more metadata, how you pull takeoffs, right? We've got, some partnerships we're working on. We have some plans, within our own product itself that we'll be probably announcing later this year, that I can't talk too much about. But certainly the next piece of the puzzle is getting deeper into all the data handling. Our focus right up front, right, and probably why a lot of people aren't doing what we're doing. You just get kicked in the teeth hard by working on top of Revit, quite honestly. So we want to make sure that the Revit piece and the Revit side and how to make those assemblies is really rock solid. So that's been our core focus.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot more web facing workflows coming over the course of this year.
That's great. That's great. Is there anything else you want to show us on that video before we jump further into
Yeah, I think the last bit of it. Do I just hit the play button again?
There it is.
So yeah, just a few more minutes on this. So the next piece, right, is just how do I get that kit of parts? And as an architect putting a building together, how do I just efficiently put a building together, right? And this is honestly the simplest part of the puzzle. It looks a bit boring almost, but a few things to explain. So we talked about that relationship of projects to kits to components. This project that we're looking at, we have pinned this Revit file to a different project that has one kit associated with it. So we just have our units kit. And this is really purposeful, right? I'm handing this information over to an architect. When I was working in the context of product design, I had my subunits and my units, and I need all of that information. I need all the sub-assemblies because I'm doing product design. If I hand this over to an architect, they have no business touching my subunits, right? So we're able to curate that information down, say, here's just the top level parent component. Don't even think about the subunits, right? You don't want them creating Frankensteins. So this is an example of the curation piece and how to really control the interaction with that information. We could go a step further and even lock down those users from not being able to edit those components or create new revisions of those components. So for this user, right, which is the falling as far to the background as we can in the construction document workflow, it's get into the kit browser, look at those components, see that they're released, insert them in your model, and then from there I can just do normal Revit things. So I'm going to copy it around using Revit copy. I'm going to copy paste it right between levels. All of the normal things you would do in Revit. So the cognitive overhead for this user on the project execution side, it should be, learn Kit Connect in 15, 20 minutes, get up and running, and it just gets out of your way. And I have the confidence as the product owner that none of my data is getting mangled along for the ride, right? So then I'm going to be able to pull out a bill of materials and things like this. So this is like really, really simple piece of the puzzle, is just make it really easy. You can see I'm copy pasting between levels here. Make it really easy to get that information in the context of the building. Good.
Yeah, I was going to say, and the person working with this, regardless of whose module they're using, whether it's locked or not, they can go all the way into the finest details to see what's there, right?
Exactly. And then the last piece I'll show is if they're creating a new revision, or I'm making a design change to one of those components, how we can signal that information back to any designer on any Kit Connect project that's using that component. So design change and cascading that change, broadcasting it immediately in real time is a big piece of the puzzle. So the last thing I'm going to show here is we're going to focus again on that module. I'm going to open it up. We'll open it up for editing. So we'll go back into our Kit browser. We'll open it. It's gonna download that file from the cloud, open it up automatically in Revit, and then I can start working with it. Right, I can add more components to it. So you can see here we're now working on that unit. I can see it's displaying I'm in my 3-bedroom unit. It lists out I have 3 children, so those are all components. The child components that live inside that are nested in that. I can see the revision states. And then I can go and add more information. So I'll open up my Kit browser. I'm going to go to my balconies kit, and then I will just add that balcony. Again, this is another component. I could freely model that if I wanted, or I could use a component from our library. And I'm a product designer in this context, right? So I have full edit rights over this component. Once I add the information I want, make the modifications I want, I can publish this either as a new revision or a new version. And I'm going to choose to publish this as a new revision. So this is going to bump that to revision B. And once I do that, anybody on any project interacting with this unit is going to get a signal in the system that says there's a new revision available. So I'll put a revision note, say that I added that balcony off of the bedroom. I'll specify I want to make a new revision. I'll publish that change. And now if in the context of my model, you'll see we get that little R that appears over that component that tells me there's a new revision available. I can go and act on that. I can go in and get more detailed information on it, see the different revisions available. So I'll see this ledger that says there's a revision B available. I'll say I want to swap to that revision, and it's going to pull in that new revision with that balcony. I have access to all of the notes, so on and so forth. And that's anybody on any project that's connected using that specific component. They're going to get that change. And they have the option not to take it too, and I think that's the other important part is I might be, about to submit a permit set. And the last thing I want is somebody automatically reaching into my model, making changes. So the end user, they have the choice, they have the information in front of them. Maybe the note says design defect, do not issue for permit. And everybody using that component is going to get that information, and then they can push that change through the model. So that just kind of shows you like kind of completing that life cycle loop, how to communicate that information back to the end users as you iterate change. And that's really the iterate piece in Kit.
Sure. And what about codes and knowing all the different fastener codes, whether you're in high wind, low wind, right? Depending on the zones you're in, how does it account for all of that?
That's still back to the humans, right? But we're going to give you better ways to organize that, and I think that, think of curating that in the context of various kits.
Right.
So I might have a kit that is saying this kit is specifically for, hurricane load on the East Coast, right? Versus earthquake on the West Coast. So I could create a West Coast kit and East Coast kit. So just having the ability to organize the information is going to be, part of that logic, and the revision system too. Codes change all the time. I might make a design change to a component because the code changed this year, and I want everybody to know that, right? And I can cascade that information. So we're giving better tools to manage it at scale. At the end of the day, how you actually make those design changes comes down to the humans looking at that. We're not quite there yet.
And talk to me a little bit about, training on this, like prefab design training. What if somebody cuts and pastes in, I don't know, in the wrong direction, and the mechanicals and chases and MEPs are way out of whack? Or does it actually, when you're using this set of kit, the kit of parts, does it automatically snap things where they need to be?
So when you insert it, you have confidence that thing is correctly formed. Now we can only reach so deep into Revit, and kind of control what people do once they have the information. But we do have tools in the system that I can go and refresh all of that information. So if somebody mucked with the model, I can refresh the entire model, and it's going to replace the entire model with the correct definition from the cloud. So we have some, I would call them automated QA/QC steps that we can put in there to ensure that if anybody introduces errors, we can knock them out of the system.
Perfect. All right. Big question here. You ready, Mike? You're sitting down, aren't you?
I'm sitting down.
All right, let's talk a little bit about how does AI and machine learning play into the future of all of this? And I'm sure Joel and Henry and you guys out there as well, where do you see this going? Because AI is, artificial intelligence is coming on fast and heavy. It could be a game changer, in my opinion. What is your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I'll kind of address it from where I feel we are today, which is a lot of the AI and automation in the world is very dependent on good data sets, right? Maybe someday we're at the point where you feed it kind of undifferentiated stuff and it just figures it all out. But, as it sits today, AI, machine learning, it wants good data to work with. And I think that's, Kit Connect gives you a system to provide well formed, well structured data. So you're going to be able to feed those training sets more, you're going to have better confidence that it's based on very well formed decision making. So I think, our tool and prefab in general, right? It's a very standards driven, data driven way of working. I think it's like sort of the perfect model to start testing these ways of working out, right? If I can quantify every component and subcomponent and subassembly in my entire building, I have a lot better success to start to hand that over to a training set or to a machine learning algorithm
Right.
that's going to make some decisions for me.
Perfect. Who are you working with? Can like when I think of this whole project, Frog, and I think of Kit Connect, was this created initially just to service Project Frog? Can you tell us a little bit more about Project Frog and
Yeah,
also share with us
yeah,
some of your partners?
yeah, for sure. So, you know, Project Frog is a little different than a lot of prefab companies. So we're what we call a horizontally distributed company. So we don't own factories.
Okay.
We work with third-party manufacturers, and we don't self-perform, right? And we have like an in-house design team designing the kit of parts, and a supply chain and kind of procurement team that works with the builders. So the reason that's important is that when we think about developing tools, and Kit Connect originally, we did develop this as an internal tool. We had this problem of how do we develop this kit of parts in a BIM environment? How do I share that with a third party set of architects, right? That doesn't know our system, that doesn't know the constraints, doesn't know how to work with it. How do we maintain a level of control in their model? And then we would take that model and we'd turn around and we need to work now with a third party manufacturer. So that means we have to break that model back into a BOM. We want to make sure that we get back something that is as well formed as what we gave you,
Right.
right? And we, like I said, we were cobbling together all kinds of tools and PLM and PDM and trying all this stuff and trying to force fit it, and it really just wasn't working. So we said, let's just build something that is working for us. We were fortunate a few years back to get some investment from Autodesk as part of the
Mhm.
Forge Fund. So we worked pretty closely with Autodesk over the past few years. Like I said, we hopefully have some partnerships to announce this year. But that's really, it's really born out of a very unique, I think, condition of how our business was set up, and I think it set us up for success because I feel if we were just a vertically integrated company, we probably would have created some very specific technology that wasn't usable outside the context of Frog.
Right.
Because we had to work with third party architects and third party manufacturers, it broadened our view of how to think of the software and really be software for people outside of our organization to operate. And that really set a lot of the lens on how we approach the product, and why we were able to kind of then say, you know what, this is a big problem in the industry. This isn't just Frog. And I think we've sort of, it resonates with a lot of people because it's easy to use, it's easy to onboard people, and it's not specific to our inner workings of just Project Frog.
Well, and I would imagine it's a big value to larger firms, architectural firms that have a lot of draftsmen and designers working, right? To get that
Yeah,
step and repeat project, always make sure you're outputting the same thing, for some of these big companies.
yeah, we have some of the largest companies in the world right now that are
Yeah.
using Kit Connect, specifically on healthcare. We've seen a lot of traction there. There's a lot of projects in the Middle East. There's a lot of housing crisis going on in the Middle East, and a lot of
Right.
focus on modular. So that's been good traction there. So yeah, very large firms, right? You have these centers of excellence. You have these experts that have been there a long time, and how do you take that knowledge? How do you distribute
Right.
knowledge at scale, right? And and design knowledge, right? Not just design files. Files are not IP. Files are not design knowledge. How do I take my best expert designers and distribute what's in their brain out to those organizations?
Well, I know if you had to take what was in my brain and try and get it out to those organizations, it'd look like spaghetti. It'd be almost a nearly impossible thing to do with the way I bounce around. But Mike, did we not cover anything? Is there anything you want to make sure that you mentioned before we wrap up today?
No, I think we've covered it. I think there's
Great.
been a great conversation. So
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So, all right, listen, everybody. Friday, that's right. This Friday, we have Huber Engineered Woods on Building Science Friday, BS Friday with Mark Bare Naked Willie and I. We're going to have Chris Cook on and the one and only Stephen Basic. That's right. Big Red will be on our show. So make sure you tune in this Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing everything you guys are doing with Kit Connect and Project Frog. I love it. I think anything we can do to keep moving this industry forward, and there's different ways to do that. And you guys have a very viable option, and I love it.
thanks so much, Dave. It was great being on.
Yeah, it was great having you. All right, everybody else, we will see you this Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, BS Friday. Don't miss it. And then we're off to Las Vegas, baby. I'll be in Las Vegas leaving Sunday, coming home next Friday for the International Builders Show. So look at our schedule. We posted it many times. Also, make sure you look at when we go live. We're going to go live on the show floor. So if you can't make it, we're going to bring all the action to you live, and you'll be able to ask some questions with a little bit of technology and luck that the wireless is going to work well for us. I'm Dave Cooper. We'll see you next time. Mike, stay right there.